Step 6, profiling segments. First, we want to look at traditional approaches to profiling market segments, and we'll be reusing the segmentation solution we obtained in section 5.5.4 on vacation motives dataset, where we ran the neural guess algorithm, a partitioning method on that dataset for different number of clusters with a certain number of random initializations, and we are selecting the 6 cluster solution out of that. So vacmod.k6 is the result of a partitioning method where we are looking for a partition into 6 clusters, and we remember the output of a partitioning method is always the centroids and the cluster assignments. So what we are interested here in profiling are the centroids, and we can extract the centroid information with the function parameters. So if we use parameters, this will return CL means, and CL means contains in the rows the clusters, and the columns with as many columns as we have variables in our segmentation base. This is in this case 20. So each row represents the centroid for that cluster, sort of. And we, by default, we have column names, but we don't have row names. So we're adding row names to indicate that this corresponds to segment 1 to 6. So this is, we're adding the row names, and the traditional approach would be to include that information of the centroids which represent the average agreement with every of the vacation motifs in each of the clusters in a table. And we often, it might also be of interest to compare one specific segment to the total population. So we're using that table with the cluster means, and we add an additional column. So here we are transposing the cluster means to have the variables in the rows and the segments in the columns, and then we're adding an additional column. We're C-binding it together, column bind. The column called total will contain the average agreement levels over all respondents. And this will be now a matrix which has 20 rows, 20 variables we have in our segmentation base, and which has 7 columns for the 6 segments and for the total population. This contains proportions. We are multiplying by 100 to get percentages. So if we look at the table, this would need to be interpreted in a traditional approach for profiling market segments. What we would need to do is we look at segment 1. This is the profile sort of segment 1, and we can compare these values to the total population, for example. So this would mean comparing every value here to every value here. In total here we have 20 times 60, 120 values. So that would mean already 120 comparisons. And for segment 1 we would then see, okay, this is a segment which tends to agree less on average than a normal person, whereas for segment 2 one could see that they want to rest and relax, and for them it's very important to not exceed their planned budget. Here they're much higher than the total population, and they're not interested in the lifestyle of the local people, which is much lower here, and so on and so forth. But we would need to go through all of these values, and if we want to compare the segments, one segment to another segment, this would even mean 15 comparison for each of the variables if we want to have a pairwise comparison between all segments.